I sent a birthday message to my husband's best friend. Now I'm the villain in their love story. No, not our story. Not mine and my husband's. Theirs. Because what started as a harmless, slightly flirty DM at 12:04 a.m. became a full-blown affair I didn't see coming. And a revelation that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Turns out, the only outsider in our relationship was me. Let me rewind. My name is Maren. I'm 34. I work in marketing, I make a mean pesto, and until a few months ago, I thought I was married to the most loyal man alive. Ethan and I had been together for 6 years, married for 4. Comfortable, boring content. Too content, maybe. Because somewhere along the line, we stopped being lovers and started being cohabitants who shared a tax return. Which is probably why the late-night message I sent to his best friend, Drew, didn't feel like a betrayal. Not then. It was Drew's birthday. He and Ethan had been friends since high school. Total opposites. Ethan was steady, thoughtful, organized. Drew was chaos in a hoodie. The kind of guy who'd flirt with your mom and charm the bartender into giving you free drinks on a Tuesday. And honestly, I always thought he was kind of hot. Not in a serious way, just in a late-night text kind of way. He and I had always had banter. It was a known thing. Ethan would even laugh about it sometimes. You and Drew could host a roast battle, he'd joke. So when I sent the birthday message, it wasn't meant to start something. It was just a moment. Happy birthday, you arrogant Leo. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Harmless, right? Except 20 minutes later, he replied. That narrows it down to pretty much everything. And with that, I was in. It started as banter, always banter. Quips, inside jokes, little jabs that made me smile more than my husband had in months. I wasn't lonely, not exactly. But I was unnoticed. Ethan worked late, came home tired, said love you like it was a reflex, not a feeling. And Drew. Drew saw me. He remembered that I hated cilantro. He asked about the podcast I mentioned once in passing. He sent memes at midnight that made me laugh out loud in the dark while Ethan snored beside me. It felt innocent. Until it didn't. I told myself it's just texting, it's not physical. And then it was. One night, after too many drinks at a group dinner, Ethan passed out on the couch, and Drew lingered to help clean up. He didn't kiss me. I kissed him. 5 seconds of heat and guilt and breathless silence. Then he pulled back and whispered, "This isn't nothing anymore." And just like that, we were already too far in. I knew I should stop. I knew I should come clean. But every time I looked at Ethan, folding laundry, paying bills, yawning through another episode of some show we both forgot the plot to, I couldn't bring myself to burn down the only steady thing I'd ever had. So I compartmentalized. Drew was the spark. Ethan was the foundation. Or so I thought. Until the moment I found out the foundation had been under construction long before I ever stepped into their triangle. Because Drew and Ethan, they weren't just best friends. They were something else. And I was the afterthought they forgot to inform. If you asked me back, then what the worst thing a husband could do was, I'd probably say cheat. Now, I'd say, forget to mention you're the third wheel in your own marriage. Because for years, I thought I had Ethan figured out. Sweet, loyal, predictable. A little emotionally flat, sure, but never unkind. He was the kind of man who bought flowers on random Wednesdays, remembered my mom's birthday, and always rinsed the peanut butter knife before putting it in the sink. He was safe. And maybe that was part of the problem. We settled into a routine, like most couples do. Weekdays were blur commutes, takeout, and rewatching shows we didn't even like anymore. Weekends meant errands and the occasional brunch with friends. Sex twice a month maybe, always on a Saturday, always polite. And Drew. Drew was just around. He helped us move when we bought the house. He stayed over sometimes when his power went out. He called Ethan at midnight just to talk about the playoffs, and no one thought it was weird. Looking back, I realized they were in constant communication. But I assumed that's just what guys did. My first real suspicion that something was off came months before the birthday message. I had come home early from a work retreat. My flight had been canceled due to weather, and I didn't tell Ethan I was coming home early because, well, I thought it'd be a cute surprise. The house was dark when I got back. Not just lights off, quiet. Too quiet. I opened the door and called his name. No answer. Then I heard a voice from upstairs, low, laughing, intimate. It was Drew. I froze. Then footsteps, a door creaked open. Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, shirtless, startled. "Oh," he said, blinking like he'd seen a ghost. "You're back." My eyes darted past him, expecting what? A woman. A mess. Instead, Drew stepped into view, fully dressed, calm. "Hey, Mare," he said smoothly. "Rough weather." I laughed nervously. "Yeah, didn't mean to startle you guys." They both shrugged it off. Just guys hanging out. Just a late-night visit. Just a weird coincidence. But my gut whispered something else. I ignored it. Now I know what you're thinking. How could I not see it? But Ethan was my husband. And Drew was just Drew. If anything, I had always assumed Drew was flirtatious, sure. But not into Ethan. And Ethan. Straight, extremely straight. I mean, he hated musicals. But small things kept piling up. The way Ethan always checked his phone when Drew texted. The way they sometimes talked in low voices on the patio after parties. The way Ethan once said, "I think some people just know you know." And I laughed, thinking he meant me. I didn't realize until later that he was looking past me, toward Drew. So when I kissed Drew after that dinner party, I expected guilt. I expected chaos. What I didn't expect was for Drew to pull away, eyes wide, breath shaky, and say, "I can't, he'd never forgive me." I blinked, "Ethan." He nodded, "You don't get it, Maren, he's not just my best friend." My pulse thudded. "What are you saying?" But he didn't answer. He just left. 2 days later, Ethan sat me down at the kitchen table. He didn't look angry. Just tired. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. And then he told me everything. That he and Drew had been more than best friends since college. That their bond went deeper than friendship, deeper than brotherhood, deeper than me. That they'd spent years trying to define it, but gave up on labels. That when he met me, he thought he was ready to settle into something simpler. That he thought it would fade. But it hadn't. He said he loved me, that he still does. But there was a part of him I could never reach. Because it already belonged to someone else. And Drew. He hadn't just been in the picture. He'd always been the frame. I sat there blinking, trying to understand how my marriage had two main characters. And I was just an extra. And that flirty birthday message. It wasn't the beginning of an affair. It was the interruption of a love story I didn't even know I'd been cast into. You'd think the hardest part was finding out they were in love. It was. The hardest part was realizing I had been the distraction from their story. That for years, I thought I was the plot. When really, I was just the detour. After Ethan's confession, there was no screaming. No slamming doors. No "how could you" or "get out" or "I want a divorce." There was just silence. The heavy kind, the honest kind. The kind that makes your bones ache because it's finally the truth. Ethan said he wanted to figure things out. That he didn't want to hurt me. That he never meant for it to go this far. I asked him, "What even is this?" And he said, "It's not a phase." I think that was the moment I realized I'd already lost. Not just Ethan, but the whole version of my life that I thought was stable. Because you can't fight for something if you were never fully invited into it. I spent the next few weeks floating, eating cereal for dinner, wandering from room to room like the house had grown new walls I didn't recognize. Watching Ethan move through the space like he was half here, half somewhere else. And that somewhere else always had Drew in it. They weren't hiding anymore. Late-night phone calls turned into early morning coffees. Inside jokes got sharper. Ethan smiled more. And not at me. One morning, I found Ethan standing in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. He looked peaceful, lighter than I'd seen him in years. I asked, "Is Drew coming over?" He didn't even flinch. "Yeah," he said, "we're talking through some stuff." "What kind of stuff?" He hesitated. "We've been talking about boundaries." I laughed. "Boundaries? As in what this looks like for the future." I set my coffee down hard. "This being what exactly?" He looked at me then. Earnest, gentle, and devastating. "A relationship." I wanted to scream. But what came out was a whisper. "So what does that make me?" He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed. "I don't know yet." That hurt more than anything. Because I don't know yet means I'm still negotiating my spot with him, but I haven't decided what to do with you. I called my sister that night. Told her everything. She was quiet for a long time, then finally said, "Okay, but are they asking you to stay?" And I froze. Because they were. No one had said, "We want to try this with you." No one had said, "You're part of this." I was just still there. Like an unpaid intern in someone else's fantasy. The next day, Drew came over. I was in the living room. He came in like he always did, like it was his home. Waved, smiled. "Hey, Maren." I said nothing. He sat on the arm of the couch like old times and asked, "Are you okay?" And something inside me snapped. You know, for someone who was supposedly in love with my husband this whole time, you really didn't hesitate to flirt with me. He blinked. It wasn't fake. Then what was it? He looked down. "I think we both just needed something. And now you do." He sighed. "I think Ethan and I need to figure out what this looks like without hurting you more." I laughed bitterly. It's a little late for that. That night, I stood in front of our wedding photo. The one on the hallway was. The one where Ethan's hand is around my waist, and Drew is standing beside us, his smile just a little too wide. And I realized I had been surrounded by their love all along. I just didn't know it. Or worse. Maybe I did. Maybe I ignored it. Because I wanted to believe I was the main character. But now I was just the ending of Act I. You'd think I'd leave. That I'd pack a suitcase, slam a door, book a solo Airbnb in some desert town, and write poetry about betrayal. But I didn't. I stayed. Not because I was in denial. Not because I thought I could win Ethan back. I stayed because I was curious. Morbidly, masochistically curious. I wanted to see what it looked like when your husband and his best friend tried to convert your marriage into a soft landing for their love story. And when I tell you, it was seamless. I mean it. The first time I caught them holding hands, they weren't even trying to hide it. We were watching some mindless reality show on the couch, me in the middle, Ethan on my right, Drew on my left. They were laughing about something I didn't hear. Then Ethan reached across my lap to grab Drew's hand. Not a flirty touch. Not a drunken slip. Just a natural, familiar gesture. Like they'd done it 100 times when I wasn't looking. I froze. Neither of them did. Later that week, Ethan sat me down again. This time, he was nervous. Fidgeting, clearing his throat. "I've been thinking," he said, about what it might look like for the three of us. I blinked. You mean a throuple? He winced. I don't love that word. But that's what you're suggesting. He nodded. You want to date both of us? No, I want us to see what this could be openly, equally. I stared at him. After years of lying and sneaking and letting me think I was your person, now you want me to share you. He looked genuinely pained. It's not about sharing, it's about being honest. I laughed, sharp, flat, unamused. You want a joint calendar and a joint toothbrush now? Of course not. Then what do you want? He paused. And that's when I saw it. He didn't want me in it. He wanted me to bless it. To say, go ahead, I'm okay with this. He wanted permission to replace me without being the bad guy. I walked out of that conversation feeling hollowed out. I wasn't being offered a seat at the table. I was being asked to carry the chairs. 2 days later, I got the group text. Ethan and Drew. Hey, we know this is a lot, but we've talked and decided we want to try this for real. We're telling friends this weekend. We understand if you need space. You've been incredible through this, Maren. Truly, we love you. They loved me. Like a lamp they didn't want to throw away because it still worked, but just didn't match the new decor. I didn't respond. I stared at the message for hours. Then I scrolled Instagram. Sure enough, there it was. A photo. Ethan and Drew, arms around each other, smiling in that effortless, we've arrived kind of way. The caption, it's been a long time coming here, to choosing truth. The comments rolled in. Finally. OMG, I knew it. Power coupled. So brave. This makes me believe in love again. And just like that, I was the footnote. No one asked, what happened to Maren? No one said, wait, was Ethan married? Because apparently, I wasn't part of the narrative anymore. Just an inconvenient prequel. They moved in together a month later. Drew never officially moved out of his own place. He just stopped staying there. I stayed in the house for 2 more weeks. Then I packed a single suitcase and left a note on the counter. You two deserve each other, and I deserve better than to be applauded for my silence. No dramatic goodbye. No confrontation. No third act twist. Just an exit. Quiet, clean, brutal. Because sometimes walking away is the revenge. There's a particular kind of rage that doesn't boil. It doesn't explode. It doesn't even scream. It just simmers, quietly, steadily, while the world applauds your ex for finding himself. Because that's what happened. The man who cheated emotionally for years, who let me kiss his secret partner, who let me believe I was the center of something I was never even on the edge of. He was now so brave. Ethan and Drew became Instagram famous. Not viral, but enough. Their coming out story got reshared by a queer relationship blog. Someone wrote in the comments, "This is what it looks like when love wins." Another added, "Throuple goals if only society allowed it." Funny. No one asked how society treated the one who wasn't invited. My phone buzzed with pity messages from people who hadn't texted me in months. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. You handled it so gracefully. You must have known, right? Did they ask you to be part of it? Everyone treated it like I'd witnessed a car accident from across the street. But I wasn't a bystander. I was the one under the hood, trying to breathe while the driver posed for selfies. I tried moving on. Signed up for yoga. Downloaded dating apps. Went on exactly one date with a man who called his mother twice during dinner and said bro 3 times per sentence. I deleted the apps the next morning. Because how do you date after something like this? After realizing you weren't just left. You were written out of a love story already in progress. One night I ran into a mutual friend, Ava, at a coffee shop. She hugged me tightly, then leaned in and said, "So, have you talked to them?" I blinked, talk to who? She gave me that awkward grimace people make when they're about to say something terrible with good intentions. They're throwing a party next weekend. A housewarming/anniversary/love is love thing. I think they're going public now. My chest tightened. They've already gone public. She shrugged. I mean, like officially, there's gonna be speeches. I nearly choked on my latte. Speeches? Yeah, and Ethan said he wanted to acknowledge the journey. I tilted my head. The journey where he kept 2 lives going and then handed me the bill. Ava's smile faltered. You okay? I forced a grin. Never better. That night, I stared at my closet for 20 minutes. Not to pick an outfit. To stare at the dress I'd worn to our wedding. Soft blush pink. Off-shoulder. Simple, understated. Just like how I'd made myself for years. Palatable, accommodating, background colored. I took it out, hung it in the living room. Then I poured wine and stared at it like it was a crime scene. Because that dress wasn't a symbol of love anymore. It was evidence of my erasure. 2 days later, a notification popped up on my phone. At Ethan, Drew, love tagged you in a post. I blinked. What? I opened Instagram. There it was. A photo from their party. Ethan and Drew, arms wrapped around each other, glowing with champagne and righteousness. In the background, me. A printed photo of our wedding day, framed on their memory wall. The caption, from best friends to soulmates, every journey has a beginning. And I was their beginning. The launchpad. The prelude. Not a person. A plot device. I untagged myself. Then I texted Ethan. You framed a photo of our wedding at your Throuple party. He replied 5 minutes later. It was meant as respect. You're part of our story, Maren, always. I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered. Then I wrote. I wasn't your story, I was your cover. I didn't hear back. Not then, not ever. The next day, I got a package. No return address. Inside, that same wedding photo. And a handwritten note. 4 words. Thank you for everything. No signature. No apology. No explanation. Just the final nail. And you know what? I kept the photo. But I flipped it over. Now it sits face down on my bookshelf. Like a ghost, I finally decided to stop feeding. Revenge looks different when you're no longer trying to be seen. I used to fantasize about a dramatic exit. Me storming their party in a red dress, flipping tables, delivering a monologue that would leave them speechless. The crowd gasping in awe, realizing I was the real main character all along. But that's not what happened. Because real-life revenge isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's a door quietly closing behind you and the lock clicking once. They kept going. Ethan and Drew leaned into their truth. They posted photos of farmers' market runs, coordinated outfits, beach selfies with captions like healing together and soulmates take time. The wedding photo disappeared eventually, probably after someone finally asked. Wait, wasn't he married? But the legacy remained. They became that couple. The ones everyone praised for coming out strong after complicated beginnings. The ones who got podcasts and features in queer lifestyle pages. The ones who made people cry in comment sections. And me. I became a rumor. An unspoken part of the origin story. The first wife. The plot twist no one really wanted to unpack. Until one day, I got a DM. Not from Ethan. Not from Drew. From a woman named Chelsea. Hey, you don't know me, but I just started seeing Drew. I thought you should know. I blinked. Scrolled. There were screenshots. Conversations. Messages time-stamped, while Drew was still publicly partnered with Ethan. He told me it was open, but it felt off. Then I saw old tags and found your page. I didn't respond right away. Because it wasn't just shocking. It was poetic. The man who'd stolen my husband had already started editing his own love story. And suddenly, the two of them weren't soulmates anymore. They were just a sequel. One already cracking at the spine. I thought about texting Ethan. Thought about forwarding the screenshots. Thought about writing, looks like I wasn't the villain after all. But I didn't. Because it hit me. They never made me the villain. They made me the origin. The convenient setup to justify their endgame. And villains get blamed. But origins get forgotten. So I did something else instead. I made my own account. Not for pity. Not for storytelling. Just truth. I posted one photo. Me in a red dress, holding a wine glass, smiling, not like I'm trying to look happy, but like I am. Caption: Thanks for making room. I didn't want to be in your story anyway. No names. No tags. Just closure. It got more likes than anything I'd ever posted before. Comments rolled in. This energy. Say it louder. They never deserved you. Even Ava commented. Finally. But the most satisfying part. Ethan watched my story. 3 times. I sold the wedding dress. Took a weekend trip by myself. Didn't cry in the Airbnb. Didn't text him after the 3rd glass of wine. Didn't pull old photos out of the cloud. I bought myself a necklace. Tiny gold charm with one word engraved. Enough. Because I was. Even when they tried to convince me I was extra. People think revenge means destruction. But real revenge is removal of yourself. From the frame. From the narratives. From the pedestal you never asked to be placed on. They still post. They still pose. They still caption like their love is scripture. But I'm not in the story anymore. And that's the final chapter they don't get to rewrite. People ask me now if I'm over it. Over them. Over the betrayal. Over the photo. Over the silence. And I always say the same thing. I didn't get over it. I got out of it. There's a difference. When you've been part of a story that wasn't really about you, the hardest part isn't walking away. It's learning how to talk in your own voice again. Not as someone's wife. Not as someone's villain. Not as someone's plot twist. Just you. Unscripted, undirected, uncaptioned. I no longer check Ethan and Drew's page. Not out of bitterness. Out of indifference. That might be the most underrated healing milestone. The moment you stop measuring your worth by what your exes are doing on social media. Because I used to refresh obsessively, trying to decode their smiles to see if they looked happy enough to justify what they did to me. Now, I don't care. Because their happiness doesn't define my healing. These days my life is smaller. In the best way. I go on long walks alone. I cook for one without shame. I light candles for no one but myself. There's no epic love story. No grand new romance. No perfect partner waiting in the wings. And that used to scare me. But now, it feels like peace. Like coming home. To me. Sometimes people still ask me what happened. Not directly. But they say things like, "Weren't you married?" Or, "Whatever happened with Ethan?" And I just smile and say, "Oh, that ended. It wasn't mine to keep." Because that's the truth. That relationship didn't break. It expired. It was built on a foundation that was never meant to hold me. And I stopped apologizing for wanting more space than they ever offered. I kept one thing from the marriage. Not the ring. Not the photos. Not the dress. A candle. One of those overpriced, ridiculous ones Ethan always thought smelled like too much. It's called smoke and fig. And now, every time I light it, I think, this is what survival smells like. Not roses. Not revenge. Just soft, clean flame. If you've been where I've been, if you felt like the third wheel in your own relationship, I want you to know this. You're not crazy. You're not selfish. You're not too much. You were just in the wrong story. And maybe no one warned you that sometimes the people who say, forever, are really just holding space for someone else. But now you know. So write your own chapters. Turn the page. Burn the photo. And never again beg for a seat at someone else's table, when you could be building your own. Because I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the beginning. I wasn't the ending. I was the woman who walked away. And that makes me the author now. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.